Yeah, so you know the whole saga that I just did where some some acquaintance abandoned a dog with me and I can't have a dog and I like tried to find her a home and couldn't, so then I eventually got had my doctor write me a letter saying that I benefit from a support animal because it helps me with. I mean, it really does. Like my PTSD, agoraphobia, anxiety, just loneliness. Just it having Scout around was really helpful. So was it was completely valid. Anyway, got the letter, and I hadn't told my landlord yet because she hadn't moved in with me full time. I was getting ready to do that. Then a family member passed. It's okay. And my parents had to go out to Danville to be there, for the with the family. And I would have gone too, but somebody had to watch Scout, so I stayed and I watched Scout. I'm getting evicted. I'm getting like I when I took Scout for a walk that morning, when I got back, my landlord was like waiting in the hallway, and he, first thing he just said, front door, and he was like like sitting on the stairs looking at his phone. Didn't look. I was like, I'm sorry. Take the dog through the front door. And I said, oh, this is my emotional support animal. I have a letter. She like my this my right to have this dog is protected under the Fair Housing Act. It took a while for me to get all this out because he just kept interrupting me saying, I don't care. No dogs in the building. Get rid of the dog. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. It's disrespectful. And I was kind of shaken because I put Scout in the apartment. I got the letter. He wouldn't even look at it. He, and he also wouldn't look up from his phone, never once. And but so I did produce the letter, and he said, well, you didn't deliver it. And I was like, I delivered it now, but also I did my due diligence and I looked into this, and Scout became an emotional support animal the day that letter was written. There are no parameters for informing your landlord for what timeline, and also I had informed him because she didn't live with me yet. Anyway, I eventually, because he just kept saying the same stuff and saying that he didn't care and that he didn't care and he didn't care, so eventually I was just like, I'm going into my apartment now, and I just left him out there. And God, I don't know, maybe like an hour later, there was a very assertive knock at the door, and I answered it to this huge, like linebacker looking, 6'7", like broad shouldered, like I don't know, 50s, 60s guy, who I think is my landlord's dad, but nobody ever told me who he was. I wasn't gonna let them in, so I was like, "Oh, excuse me, I'll come talk to you out here." And he like rushed me, got really in my face, cornered me in the hallway, and started screaming in my face. There's no dogs in the building. Get rid of the dog now. What was this? It was mostly just that. No dogs in the building. Get the dog out. I don't care. I don't care. And again, like every time I'd be like, Fair Housing Act. I have a letter. I have a right. Just I don't care was what he kept saying. So eventually I was just sort of like, all right, I'll let him finish. He's not. And he said either the dog gets a notice to vacate or you get a notice to vacate, and he left. Oh, also, my landlord was standing maybe 5 feet behind him, looking at his phone like a 5-year-old. He was just, he wouldn't look me in the eye, and he just, anyway, so they left. And, maybe an hour after that, when I took Scout out again for another walk, I got my notice to vacate. Which, so I have to be out, or this notice says I have to be out by the 31st. Today is the 18th. It does not state why. It also doesn't even state eviction. It's the language that they use is we're not going to be renewing your lease, which expires on the 31st. I signed a lease in September. That's when my lease is expired. So, and even though that they don't list that, even though the letter doesn't say that the reason I'm being evicted is because I have an emotional support animal. However, the fact that, I mean, all of the intermingling of events leading up to it, I do think that I can prove that I'm being evicted because I have an emotional support animal. And in Virginia, emotional support animals are protected by the Fair Housing Act. Excuse me. And what that means, it doesn't mean that you can take your emotional support animal on a plane. It doesn't mean that you can take your emotional support animal into a restaurant. It just protects your right it protects you from being discriminated against because you have one. So it's an accommodation that technically you request, but your landlord can't say shit about it. And so I've been doing a lot of research since this happened last week, and it's an illegal eviction. I knew that, but I'm gonna have to take my landlord to court because not because I want to stay here. I don't, but because I know that it's going to be a huge black mark on my record every time I apply to rent an apartment in the future that I was evicted. And the only way that I can see to mitigate that is to prove in court that I was unlawfully evicted. So I'm going to do that. I've applied to Virginia Legal Aid for legal representation. That, they might get back to me, they might not. Somebody very close to me works for a lawyer who does property law, but it's extremely specialized, so she can't help me, but she did gave me a list of numbers and practices that might be able to. So that's great. However, I don't know that I'm going to need a really good lawyer for this, because it's indisputable that I was evicted because I have an emotional support animal. The only grounds they have is that I hadn't officially given them the letter. And I've explained all the rest of that already. However, and also in Virginia, you're not legally obligated to vacate until your landlord takes you to court and wins. So, however, looking over the lease, if I stay past the date on the thing, then I will, if I don't win in court, I'll be liable to pay 150% of the rent for each month I stay. And I'm not, and they my security deposit is void. Although this is a slumlord. He's not going to be giving me my security deposit back. Also, there's paint on the walls. Oh, man. So, yeah, I really think that this guy who showed up must have been my landlord's dad. They looked alike. And the eviction notice was not from my landlord. It was from somebody else with the same last name, who and this is all under the umbrella of Hague Properties. Because I'm not going to put individuals on blast, not because I don't want to or to protect them, but because I worry about legal recourse later. But Hague Properties, fuck them. Needless to say, this is an executive functioning nightmare, because the process of filing the suit And even just filling out these forms, I can't find an address for these people, even for the business Hague Properties. The only address I can find, Google lists as permanently closed. I will find them though. But the process of like jumping through all these hoops to schedule a court date, procure legal representation, fucking, and find a new apartment at the same time, it's all rather overwhelming. However, I feel much better about it than I did this past week, because I have a lot of leads for apartments, and I've scheduled some tours, and that is looking good. My parents, they don't mind at all that I'll be hanging out with them for a little bit. Actually, it's probably better. So, and oh god, I miss Scout so much. I stayed at their place last night because I've begun the process of moving my shit out of the apartment. And just that little lady is my night and day. I love her so much. She is so snuggly, and she makes my life worth living. She also, an unexpected benefit of having an emotional support animal has been, she helps me with my executive functioning. Not because she teaches me how to clean my room or anything, but because I'm horrible at schedules. I have what's been called a very casual relationship with time. I forget to eat, I forget to shower, I have a really hard time keeping a schedule and a routine, which is bad, and I end up not taking good care of myself. However, if there's a dog, that dog's needs trump everything else for me. Like, I can forget to eat, but I can't forget to feed my dog. And dogs really need a structured environment with a predictable routine. So I give her that when I have her. And, God forbid she go without her 5 walks a day. So I was even getting a lot more exercise, which, made, put me back outside. I was interacting with more people. Just, it was incredible, how different and better my symptoms and my mental illness situation got when she was around. She's with my parents right now, and I don't know if I'll bring her with me to my next apartment, just because she's a high energy dog, and my dad loves her more than, he doesn't talk about anything else these days except for how good Scout is. So, and both of my parents are really supportive of me and very understanding, and they're letting me do this and aren't questioning my decisions too much. So that's awesome. Christ. I've been meaning to make this video, but this is the first day that I'm really am in a headspace where I can talk about it, where I feel okay talking about it, and I feel like I have a sense of perspective, and I feel like I have a plan to move forward. I also, just for renters out there, never underestimate your landlords know what your rights are, and they count on you not knowing what your rights are. That was why they tried to intimidate me, I think. Oh, also, just, this is an aside, but the first month I moved here, I asked the landlord to fix the oven because it didn't work, and he comes to fix the oven, but instead of going into the kitchen, he goes into the bathroom, and he's like, "Are you flushing paper towels?" Which, no. What gave you that? I was just like, no, the oven's in here. And the next day, I was dog sitting for somebody, and he called me to say that the water is out in the whole building. And after that call, he called a plumber, had them let them into the apartment without any notice or permission, which is illegal. And called me again and said, this was on a Sunday, by the way, which impacts how much that's going to cost. He said, so they found the source of the problem. The water was out for the whole building because you've been flushing paper towels. And first I was like, the toilet's working. We don't have any problem with that. We haven't, like, our water is working just fine. The toilet hasn't clogged. And I also was like, how do you know? How did they know that they came from this apartment? And he did this thing where, like, he laughed at me and he was definitely trying to be condescending, but, like, he did not answer my question. So then instead of sending me a bill or an invoice for the repairs, he just tacked $500 onto my rent balance for that month. And when I spoke to him about a payment plan, he said he wasn't going to do that. And we just had to pay. I just had to pay him the only thing I could think to do was I just said, I need to see an invoice first, like a bill, you know? He did show me an Excel spreadsheet that was written in Comic Sans, and I later found out that the heating and plumbing company that services this building has the same last name as my landlord and the person evicting me. I mean, this place is a slum. And I knew that. And I anticipated that this guy would be a slumlord. I did not, I don't know, I didn't anticipate this. I figured my landlord would be awful about it, but I did think that at the end of the day, are you going to evict somebody who's not breaking the law? But apparently, that's going on. I am going to be counting, I think, on the fact that this is a known slumlord family, and I can't imagine this is the first case. All of the landlord reviews that I found for Hague Properties and my landlord are abysmal and scathing. And just the fact of the matter is they violated the Fair Housing Act, which is not allowed. So what I'm going to be not just I'm not just doing this to like clear my name. I have to move to a new place, and I'm going to claim the deposits and first and last month's rent that I have to pay as damages, because they literally are. I should not have to pay that. I shouldn't have to. I mean, it's wacky. It's not even wacky. It surprises me not at all. And I don't know what to think about how this is going to go. I hope I can find somebody to represent me legally, because I don't know what I'm doing. I do think that most judges would, I don't know. I have no idea how that's going to go. But that is the situation as it stands today. And that is just one of a couple. It's a 3-ring circus of bullshittery right now in my life. And, but I'm functioning better than I did before any of this shit went down, which leads me to believe that I might only be able to function normally in crisis, which would be interesting. Anyway, okay, internet, I love you, bye.